I was born with face blindness, yet the rich heir never left my side. Until one day, I overheard him talking to his friend. It's been a month and she still hasn't noticed. Joseph, you're really something. But your girlfriend seems about to find out. Should we switch back? In the corner, the one called Joseph took a drag of his cigarette and shook his head. That might not work. Elizabeth is waiting for me to come home for dinner. I stood at the door and sighed, thinking I could at least get a new one. These two people, I've long grown tired of sleeping with them. Chapter 1. Actually, everything had signs from the beginning. Hudson didn't like being intimate. Whenever I mentioned work matters a little too much, he would frown. But the man before me wasn't like that. When he saw me coming, Joseph closed his laptop, slid his hand beneath the hem of my nightdress, his breath unsteady. I obediently leaned against his shoulder and swayed slightly. Tomorrow's your birthday. Have you decided how you want to celebrate it? His hand froze. Joseph looked up at me. Tomorrow was Hudson's birthday. But he was Joseph, the one who lied to me, pretending to be Hudson. I looked at him with innocent eyes. Joseph's Adam's apple moved. His interest vanished. The usual, call a few friends to hang out. I climbed back onto his shoulder and leaned closer. My voice muffled. I have a birthday gift here. Don't you want to unwrap it early? Joseph had some self-control, but not much. When we were both exhausted, I deliberately lay on his chest and called him by Hudson's name. Joseph's hand, the one holding the cigarette, paused. He patted my head, his tone unreadable. Elizabeth, go to sleep early. That night I slept deeply. When I woke, it was already afternoon. Joseph was on the phone with his back to me. Got it. I'll bring her. I wrapped my arms around his waist lazily. Who were you talking to? Joseph's hand trembled, and his phone fell to the floor. I kissed him, pretending not to notice the name displayed on the screen, Hudson. Chapter 2. Hudson's friends were quite the actors, but when Joseph wrapped his arm around my waist and walked into the private room, their faces still froze for a second. The real Hudson was sitting right in the middle of the sofa, holding a long-haired girl in his arms, smiling faintly. When he saw us come in, he pressed his tongue against his cheek, looking strangely displeased. Still as beautiful as ever. Sister-in-law. He said it through gritted teeth, but I quite enjoyed it. I shrank my shoulders and leaned into Joseph's embrace. All thanks to the birthday boy. With a sharp crack, Hudson crushed the glass in his hand. The room fell silent. The girl in his arms flinched in fear. Mario, who had been quiet until now, stood up to smooth things over. Mario was tall and fit, hard to mistake him for anyone else. I ordered a good bottle of wine as Hudson's birthday gift. I straightened up at once. I'll go get it. The wine had been stored at the club a long time ago. The waiter took quite a while to find it. When I came back with the bottle, I happened to hear my name. Hudson. Elizabeth's face blindness is that bad. Why do you keep tangling with her? Since I wasn't there, Hudson's friends didn't bother pretending anymore. Hudson's hand still had faint cuts, dangling loosely above his knees. It's fun. Anyone who claims to be Hudson, she believes. Don't you think that's hilarious? I remembered, it was him who pursued me first. We first met at the University Drama Club's showcase performance. He discovered my secret, that I couldn't recognize faces, and volunteered to be my scene partner. He was tall, long-legged, always driving his flashy Cayenne around campus. The line of admirers chasing him could have stretched to the new campus. I was flattered, while he looked utterly sincere as he tied a red string around his wrist. Elizabeth. This way, you'll never mistake me for someone else. Now, years after graduation, that red string was long gone. He looked up at Joseph sitting in the corner. It's been a month and she still hasn't noticed. You're impressive, but your girlfriend seems to be catching on. Should we switch back? I never knew Joseph had a girlfriend. In the corner, Joseph pinched his cigarette and shook his head. That might not work. Elizabeth's waiting for me to come home for dinner. Hudson let out a cold laugh. Joseph, are you addicted to playing this role? Don't forget, who is Elizabeth's boyfriend? Really? My hand was on the doorknob, just about to push it open, when someone suddenly covered my mouth from behind. I turned my head. It was Mario. He was holding 2 tall wine glasses between his fingers, looking down at me. Hold on. Are you sure you can tell which one is your boyfriend? He took the wine bottle from my hand, stepped aside, and pushed the door open, blocking me completely from view. What's wrong? This time, who's pretending to be Elizabeth's boyfriend again? I clenched my palm. When exactly had this game begun? Neither of them spoke. Mario raised his hand and poured the wine. The crimson liquid slid down the glass wall. How about letting sister-in-law make the choice herself? Hudson knocked on the table. Mario, do you think this is funny? Joseph loosened his tie and interrupted him. I think it's fair. Let's give Elizabeth the choice. What's wrong with that? Whoever she chooses to leave with, that's her boyfriend. Hudson's temper flared. Maybe he thought he still had a chance. But without that red string, what made him so sure I'd still pick him? I gripped the cold handle and pushed the door open. The tense air instantly dissipated. All eyes turned toward me. My gaze swept across the crowd. Back when we'd first started dating, Hudson used to tease me like this. He said my confused expression was adorable. But if it was really that funny, why was his injured hand clenched so tightly? Joseph sat in the corner, a cigarette between his fingers, unlit. I had promised to cook that night, to make him a bowl of birthday longevity noodles. But whether he was Hudson or not, that was up to me to decide. Holding the wine glass, I walked slowly forward, under both of their gazes. I went straight to Mario, who had been watching the show, and raised my glass. Hudson, happy birthday. Chapter 3. The moment my words fell, Hudson hurled the entire bottle of wine against the wall. Everyone around froze. Then a few rushed forward to grab him by the waist, too afraid to even say his name aloud. He's had too much to drink. Sister-in-law, please don't take it to heart. I shrank my shoulders. The next second, Mario, already too deep into his role, pulled me into his arms. Elizabeth's easily frightened. I'll take her home first. Hudson lunged forward, clutching half a broken bottle in his hand and pointing it straight at Mario. Try taking her away today, and see what happens. Mario's lips curved into a faint smirk. He stepped slightly to the side, keeping me behind him. I'll make it up to you another day. Birthday boy, don't lose your temper. But Hudson wasn't listening, fury boiling over. He yanked back his arm and swung a fist toward Mario's face. I stepped in front of Mario, and the look on Hudson's face, it was priceless. Elizabeth, do you even know who you're protecting? Take a good look at me. If not for the cuts on his hand, I might not have recognized him at all. But even if I did, so what? I might have face blindness, I said quietly, but I can still recognize my own boyfriend. Hudson's chest heaved violently. I reached into my bag, pulled out a band-aid, and pressed it into his palm. I might not tell who you are next time, but if you call me sister-in-law, I'll know you're Hudson's friend. A faint, mocking laugh came from above my head. Hudson grabbed my shoulder, his fingers tense. A second later, Mario pried his hand off me, bit by bit. Enough, he said, voice calm but firm. Let's go home. Tonight's drinks are on me. Chapter 4. When Mario turned to leave with his arm around me, Hudson, furious, smashed every bottle of wine in the room. I followed Mario into a brand new Cullinan. Hudson, he's your friend, right? Why was he so angry? Mario tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, looking at me with amused curiosity. He used to chase after you, don't you remember? The car's interior was spacious. I turned slightly, burying my face against his waist, my voice soft and aggrieved. You know I have face blindness. How am I supposed to tell people apart? Mario chuckled, pulled me up by the chin, and leaned in, pressing me against the car window. Just then, my phone, resting on my thigh, began to vibrate violently. In the past, when they played their little act, they'd swap the contacts in my phone to keep the illusion. But tonight, they clearly hadn't had time. The caller ID said Hudson, yet the voice that came through was Joseph's. Elizabeth, where are you? I'll come pick you up. So that's why he'd stayed calm earlier. He was planning to intercept. Mario pressed me down harder. My breath hitched, shallow and uneven, like drowning in air. He deliberately tightened his grip, and a muffled sound escaped my throat before I could stop it. On the other end of the call, there was sudden silence. Then Joseph's voice, sharp and furious. Mario, touch her again and see what happens. Mario kissed me with reckless intensity. I didn't have the strength to think of anything else. When I was pushed into the corner, I managed to whisper, breathless. The phone, someone's saying something. Mario grabbed it, tossed it into the back seat. Joseph's voice was abruptly cut off. Just a spam call, he said casually. I didn't call him out on the lie. Instead, I smoothed my dress and sat quietly in the passenger seat. From the corner of my eye, I thought I saw Kian following us. Unlike Hudson, who was just another spoiled rich second generation, Joseph at least had a real job. He was the only son of the Wu family, raised with all their expectations. Calling him mature beyond his years wasn't an exaggeration. In all those years, the wildest things he'd ever done were pretending to be Hudson. And, apparently, street racing on an overpass. Mario glanced in the rearview mirror, silent, then stepped on the gas. He lost Joseph and brought me to his place instead. Maybe Mario didn't even remember. I'd been here before, back when I was still with Hudson. He'd said one of his friends was sick and asked me to bring some medicine. Mario had opened the door, flushed and feverish. Startled to see me, he'd awkwardly pulled his jacket tighter around himself. Looking back, maybe Hudson had started planning this twisted game even then. Mario bit my ear, pressing me against the floor-to-ceiling window. What are you thinking about? The ticklish warmth at my ear made me flinch. He caught me again before I could pull away. I was wondering, I whispered. Should I still make the longevity noodles? Mario let out a soft laugh and released me slightly. It's just a birthday. Do you really care that much? Don't you? I asked quietly. His phone kept ringing, sometimes Joseph, sometimes Hudson. He ignored them all. Then he hooked his arm under my leg, leaned in close, his voice low and hoarse. I do care, he said. I care like hell. Chapter 5. When I woke up, Mario was gone. The phone on the nightstand had been tampered with. He deleted both Joseph's and Hudson's contacts. Only his own remained, renamed as Baby. I left the key behind and smiled faintly. Jealousy was never a good thing. After returning to work from my annual leave, piles of unfinished tasks awaited me. I was swamped when Alicia from the next office knocked on my door. Elizabeth, could you help receive a client this afternoon? I have an emergency to handle. I rarely dealt with clients because of my face blindness, but once in a while shouldn't be too hard to manage. I agreed without much thought, only to find that the visitor was Joseph. The spot behind his ear, where I had bitten him, was still faintly red. His hair was neatly combed, his face calm but somehow exhausted. President Wu, I said evenly. Is there anywhere else you'd like me to show you? Joseph Wu's gaze lingered on me for a moment before he answered quietly. Let's go sit in your office. The others followed admin staff to the company cafeteria, leaving just the two of us in the room. I poured him a glass of water. What a coincidence. I didn't expect it to be you. Does Hudson know you're here? Joseph's fingers traced the rim of the cup. No. Does it matter? I smiled faintly. True, Hudson doesn't like hearing about work anyway. The moment Hudson's name left my lips, Joseph stood abruptly, cutting me off. Your ear, what happened? Oh, probably Mario's bite. I hated when people left marks on my body. That's something I'd have to train out of them, slowly. I touched my earlobe and looked up at him. What's wrong, President Wu? You always care this much about another man's girlfriend? Funny, just before his birthday, I'd been clinging to him like a shadow. Now I was calling myself someone else's girlfriend. Joseph's hand tightened around the cup, the rising steam curling between his fingers. His jaw tensed. Can't I? I pushed my phone across the desk toward him, expression calm. You can. Tell Hudson yourself. The word baby blinked on the screen. Joseph's eyes flickered. He turned his head away. Elizabeth, do you have to do this? I didn't understand. He was the one who had tempted me, so why did it sound like I was the one seducing him? What's the matter, President Wu? I asked, voice cool. Planning to keep a secret affair with me? Joseph's eyelids trembled harder. He lifted his gaze, frustration flickering beneath restraint. Would that be so wrong? The first time I met Joseph, he was in a nightclub, wearing a suit buttoned all the way to the collar. His male assistant stood beside him, rigid, proper. He was nothing like Hudson, a man like that, saying something like this. He took a step closer, leaned down, and captured my earlobe, the one with faint teeth marks, between his lips. His breath was hot and unsteady, the edge of his cufflinks pressing into my waist. His voice trembled, low and desperate. He repeated, "Would that be wrong, Elizabeth?" I lifted my chin. Yes. Joseph froze. The warmth against my neck slowly faded. "Why?" he asked hoarsely. I straightened the pens on my desk and replied evenly. "I heard President Wu already has a girlfriend. I can't afford to offend anyone, so please, don't make things difficult for me." The girl in Hudson's arms at last night's party. That must have been Joseph's girlfriend. Joseph's lips parted slightly. Realization flashed across his face. "No, I don't. Please leave. President Wu, don't worry. I won't tell Hudson about today." He seemed like he still wanted to say something, but I had already closed the door. Men could be such a hassle sometimes, but I didn't realize the real trouble hadn't even started yet. Chapter 6. When I finished working overtime and opened the door, I vaguely heard movement coming from the kitchen. I leaned closer to look. It was Hudson. His left hand was still injured, now covered in new burns. He moved clumsily around the stove, clearly struggling. Back when we first got together, Hudson had cooked a few times. That was when he still liked me, when cooking for me felt fresh. Later, he'd stopped altogether. "You're back," he said. "Dinner's ready." I set my keys on the table, staring at him warily. "Who are you?" His expression cracked visibly. He forced a smile and placed the dishes on the table. "I'm your boyfriend." Hudson raised his wrist as he spoke, a red string tied there, with a tiny bell attached. It looked a lot like the old one. But it wasn't. Once something's lost, it's lost. No matter how close the imitation, it's never the same. I shook my head, forcing a bitter smile. "No, you're not him. The red string, he lost it long ago. You're Joseph, aren't you?" Hudson froze, voice hoarse. I sat down on the couch, my back to him. "Give me the key. I already told you, I won't be part of some secret affair." The plate in his hand shattered against the floor. "What did you just say?" "Joseph, he?" Hudson had no problem tossing me to others for fun. But the moment someone else truly wanted me, he turned into a wild dog, snarling, territorial, ready to bite. In the end, he never saw me as anything but his possession. Still, even a mad dog can be useful sometimes. I pressed on deliberately, pouring salt on the wound. I checked. "You really don't have a girlfriend." "That little starlet named Quinn, she's an actress you hired." That part was true, which meant Joseph had paid someone to play a fake girlfriend. All for this absurd little game. Joseph, I realized, was someone I still couldn't quite figure out. But even so, I added, Hudson would never agree to this. Hudson's hand tightened around a shard of glass, his chest rising and falling sharply. "He really said that?" I frowned. "He? Joseph, stop it. Just give me the key." Hudson crouched down like an empty shell, gathering the broken pieces from the floor. Then, with his head lowered, he placed the key by the door. Come to think of it, this apartment was one he'd helped me choose right after graduation. He'd said it was close to my office, and that it'd be easy for him to visit on weekends. Now, after I'd forced him to hand over the key, I wondered what he was feeling. "I took out the trash," he murmured. "Make sure you eat while it's still warm." Chapter 7. I didn't eat a single bite of the meal he made. When I went downstairs to throw out the trash, Hudson's car was still parked out front. I dumped the bag right in front of him. Then, before leaving, I dialed the number saved under baby. "Hudson, shall we go shopping this weekend?" Mario's laughter came softly through the line. "Elizabeth, you really are addicted to this little game, aren't you?" I laughed sweetly on purpose. "Then see you tomorrow, baby." Hudson turned the steering wheel sharply and finally drove away. I hung up, feeling relieved, and slept soundly for once. Work had been chaotic lately, so by the weekend I finally planned to sleep in. But Mario's call woke me up. "Didn't you say we were going shopping?" I'm downstairs, still half asleep, hair sticking up in every direction. I pulled the curtains open, right where Hudson had refused to leave last time. Mario now leaned casually against his car, waving at me. By the time I slid into the passenger seat, I was still yawning. Hudson would never pick me up for shopping. He never really meant it when he said he would. Back in school, he'd sometimes go with me to night markets. After graduation, even that stopped. Mario leaned in to fasten my seatbelt for me. He's too busy fighting with Joseph. I raised an eyebrow. Mario smirked, imitating my tone. You didn't know? Honestly, I didn't. Since the night Hudson cooked at my place, I hadn't seen him again. Rumor had it he hadn't even been going to the bar lately. Maybe he really was trying to behave. Chapter 8. Mario drove slowly. Soft background music playing, something calm I didn't recognize. How did you know I can tell you apart from Hudson? I asked. He turned the steering wheel smoothly. You said I had a better body, so I figured, the one who doesn't must be someone else. At the clothing store, Mario picked out a vivid red strapless gown. You're much more interesting than the others, he said with a grin. Try it on? The attendant, quick and efficient, found my size. I was halfway through zipping the dress when the fitting room door opened. You're here, I said lightly. Perfect timing. Help me with the zipper? No response. I turned around and found Joseph standing behind me. He was still wearing his immaculate suit. His hand came to rest on my waist, fingers pressing against the zipper, slowly pulling it up. He brushed my hair aside, leaned close, his breath against my shoulder. About last time, he murmured. Can you reconsider? I'd heard that in the past few days. Hudson had been making things difficult for him, both openly and behind the scenes. I leaned back against the wall and looked up at him. President Wu, you'll have to give me a reason. Last weekend, while cleaning my apartment, I found a handwritten shopping list wedged between the sofa cushions. During the time Joseph Wu pretended to be Hudson, I'd often begged him to go grocery shopping with me. He'd been raised under strict rules, never allowed to date, not even through college. Only after he took over the company did his family start turning a blind eye to his friendship with Hudson and their reckless crowd. He found the simplest things, the ones he'd missed out on as a boy, strangely fascinating. Grocery shopping on a Friday night like an ordinary couple. To Joseph, that had felt almost intimate. A man so disciplined and restrained, and yet so hungry for a fleeting warmth. Joseph stepped closer. Elizabeth. Before he could finish, Mario knocked lightly on the door outside. Elizabeth, do you need any help in there? I hooked a finger through Joseph's belt loop and smiled. To be someone's secret lover. President Wu, are you really willing? He was clearly nervous, but his body betrayed him. When he leaned in to kiss me, I tilted my head away. President Wu, I whispered. I told you, I don't like leaving marks. Chapter 9. When I went to pay. Mario swiped his card first, his voice tight with barely contained irritation. Do you need me to drive you two to a hotel? If he were truly willing to send me, he wouldn't have renamed himself Baby in my contacts. Sure enough, a second later, his composure cracked. He snatched the dress right out of my hands. Don't even think about it. Children, always so easy to anger. With no better choice, I stood Joseph up and let Mario drag me off to a bar instead. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, so I just turned it off. I didn't usually drink much, and it turned out I really wasn't good at it. Mario had no choice but to bundle me into the car. I refused to go to his place, so he reluctantly drove me home. But when I opened the door, the lights inside were still on. With my face blindness, and now half drunk, I couldn't tell anyone apart anymore. Even Mario, with the best body of the three, became indistinguishable the moment he let go of my hand. I collapsed onto the sofa, voices swirling around me, people calling each other's names, arguing right next to my ear. Why did you bring her home? How do you have a key to her place? Why is Elizabeth taking her clothes off? Heaven knows. I was just hot, unbearably, unnaturally hot. I'd managed to hold it together in the car, but the moment I got home, I completely lost control. In the haze, someone draped a jacket over my shoulders. Someone else lifted my chin, pressing pills to my lips. The clouds fell from the sky, everything spinning, and then, nothing. Chapter 10. When I woke up again, daylight was already pouring through the curtains. I'm a restless sleeper, which is why I bought such a big bed. Still, I'd never imagined it could actually fit 3 people. The hangover was gone. What wasn't gone was my confusion, especially since none of them were wearing clothes. I held my head, it literally hurt to think. My movements stirred them, and soon both were awake. Cautiously, I tried. Mario? He was the one who'd taken me home last night, right? The man nearest to me smiled lazily. Sweetheart. Hungry? I'll go make breakfast. I exhaled in relief until I looked up and saw the other one glaring at me, sulking in silence. Then came the knocking, sharp, impatient, unrelenting. Instinctively, I blurted out, "Don't open it!" But before I could finish, Mario, wearing nothing but a sheer apron, was already at the door. Outside stood another man I didn't recognize. At least, not at first. Then came the shouting. The man outside shoved Mario back onto the sofa. "Mario! I told you to take care of Elizabeth. This is what you call taking care of her?" Which meant the one in my bed was Joseph. I shoved him under the blanket, pulled on a shirt, and went to open the door. But Joseph, ever defiant, propped himself up on one elbow and looked at me. "So you ditched me last night to drink with Mario, now you're trying to hide me too?" The one outside was already a handful to deal with. My patience was wearing thin. "Didn't you say you were fine being my secret lover? If you regret it, then leave." The silence that followed was absolute. I turned around, and there he was, standing at the bedroom door. Hudson. Chapter 11. The 4 of us sat on the sofa, watching the surveillance footage in silence. Ever since Hudson had shown up at my place uninvited, I'd installed cameras around the apartment. Who knew who else might barge in next time? And sure enough, today they'd proven useful. I sat in the corner of the sofa, munching on an apple, while Hudson watched the recording over and over, like some kind of masochist. With a snap, I shut the laptop closed. "If you want to keep watching, take a copy home." So what if I threw up on their clothes? I was drunk out of my mind. What do you think I could have done? "Hudson, stop being unreasonable, will you?" Hudson looked up, eyes bloodshot. "Unreasonable? Elizabeth, you're my girlfriend. You were in bed with other men, and you expect me to be fine with that?" I let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, and when you passed me around like a game, did you ever think about how I felt?" Hitting where it hurts was never difficult. Hudson had come to cook for me, hoping to start over. He could pretend nothing ever happened, but I wouldn't. He froze. I twisted the knife a little deeper. "Still, I should thank you. One's young and fit, the other's gentle and considerate. I like them both." Hudson slammed his fist into the sofa, his eyes red as he crawled closer to me on his knees. "Elizabeth, take it back. Pretend I didn't hear it, okay? We used to be so good together." At least he still remembered. We had been the couple everyone envied back in school. Now we were tearing each other apart. And somehow, he thought I was the one to blame. I grabbed his chin, forcing him to look at me. "Hudson, you remember the past? Then you should be the first to know. I don't love you anymore. Once you've seen how someone looks when they truly love you, it's impossible not to recognize when that love is gone." Hudson stayed on his knees. "Elizabeth, let's start over. Please, I won't lie to you again. I've tied the red string, and a bell this time, you'll never lose me again." I pried his hand away, finger by finger. "There's no need. I won't be looking for you ever again." Those words, I'd been meaning to say them for a long time. Today's chaos just pushed them out sooner. Hudson refused to leave, so I called his mother. We came from very different worlds. She'd never approved of us. Hudson had told me not to worry, that he'd handle it. It wasn't until Joseph found me in that fitting room the other day that I learned how Hudson handled things. By lying to both sides. He'd been comforting me while already agreeing to go on blind dates. His mother's people arrived quickly, even as they led him to the car. Hudson still refused to let go of my hand. In the end, Mario coaxed and dragged him away. 6 years together, and all that was left was wreckage. I sat back on the sofa, rubbing my temples. "So," I sighed. "The 2 of you still here, what's on your minds?" Joseph spoke first. "So, does this mean I can officially be your boyfriend now?" "What?" The words caught in my throat before I could respond. Mario lifted his eyes lazily. Show some respect. Joseph, she just said the one with the better body was me. I threw them both out. Chapter 12. Hudson's downfall came faster than I'd expected. According to Mario, he'd thrown a tantrum and refused to attend the blind date his family arranged. So they froze his cards and locked him up at home. Why are you telling me this? I asked, unbuckling my seatbelt and leaning against the car window. Mario had just cut his hair, clean, sharp lines that suited him. His casual suit emphasized the broad shoulders and narrow waist that had always been his best feature. So, sweetheart, he said with a teasing smile, you really won't consider being with me? I leaned closer and loosened his tie. Why pretend to be decent in front of me? Mario smirked and raised the window, leaning in, but I stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. That night, I said softly, you were the one who called Hudson over, weren't you? Of all times, Hudson had arrived right when things were getting chaotic. And Joseph, conveniently, was there too, helping him distract attention. Mario froze for a moment. Does it matter? I didn't answer. I slowly wound his tie around my finger and leaned closer. And Joseph, he was there the night I got drunk, right? I stood him up. And you took advantage of it. You invited him to my place, didn't you? If I hadn't passed out completely, what did you plan to show him? I asked quietly. The sight of me, clinging to you like a fool, losing control? Mario's tongue brushed against his teeth. Sweetheart, you really don't miss a thing, do you? I let go of his tie and patted his cheek lightly. Then let me guess one more thing. The drug that night, that was you too, wasn't it? Mario stiffened, truly caught off guard. Then he shook his head quickly. That one wasn't me. I might be a bastard, but I'd never drug you. You wouldn't. I said coldly. But you didn't stop it either. Later, I'd gone back and checked the bar's security footage. The drug hadn't come from him. But when that man spiked my drink, Mario had been there, fully conscious, watching. Did he ever stop to think what could have happened to someone like me? Someone who couldn't even tell faces apart. If I'd been lured away that night, I fastened his tie back into place, my face calm. You got rid of Hudson for me, I said evenly. So let's call it even. When I opened the car door, Mario reached for me, but caught nothing but air. I leaned against the window and tossed all the cash from my wallet onto his seat. Consider it a tip. He really did have a great body, but that was the only thing about him worth remembering. This time, Mario didn't chase me. Truth is, I'd known ever since that day in the mall, when he said I was more interesting than other women. He never cared. He just thought of me as a diversion. A neatly packaged luxury toy. A man like him enjoyed embarrassing his own circle's golden boy in public. But never enough to truly make enemies. That's why, even when he fell out with Hudson, he still made sure Joseph would take the fall with him. Chapter 13. I was still lost in thought when I saw Joseph at the top of the stairs. Lately, he'd been coming to my office so often that my boss had started panicking, convinced our company was about to be acquired. Something wrong? I asked, pulling out my keys. Then I remembered, Joseph still had a spare key to my apartment. But really, if he already had a key, what was the point of standing out here pretending to look pitiful? I held out my palm. The key. Give it back. Joseph pressed his lips together. Silent. What? Cat got his tongue? At work he was never this quiet. I heard Mario's been picking you up a lot lately. He finally said. Have you made up your mind? Made up my mind about what? The hallway light flickered, bright, then dim, casting shifting shadows across the crisp black fabric of his suit pants. About being with him, Joseph said, voice low. Is that what you've decided? I stood in the doorway and suddenly felt a mischievous urge. Joseph looked like a man who had it all, but underneath, he was just another overworked corporate puppet. After a long day of meetings and pressure, here he was, standing in front of my door with his laptop bag in one hand, asking those words in that quiet, pleading tone. It made me want to bully him a little. I tilted my chin up, didn't admit it, didn't deny it. What exactly are you trying to say? That look, half suppressed, half unraveling, was one I'd seen before, back when he was still pretending to be Hudson, a man on the verge of breaking apart, pulled between his lies and his desires. remade into something he didn't recognize. Joseph's tongue darted across his lips. I mean, do I keep being your secret lover? I dug my nails into my thigh to stop myself from laughing. What? He met my eyes. Would that be so wrong? I turned, unlocked the door, changed my shoes, and switched on the light. Joseph slipped off his red-soled shoes and followed me inside, tidying up like he belonged there. Why do you think you can? I asked flatly. Even interns need 6 months before they can go full-time. He thought he could just declare himself permanent? What did that make me? His sponsor? His patron saint? Please, I wasn't that rich. I sat on the sofa, looking him over. Mario has the body. Hudson can cook. What about you? What do you bring to the table? Joseph, who'd grown up spoiled and pampered, always loved the ready-to-eat section at supermarkets. Sure enough, he went silent. I went to the kitchen for something to eat, but when I turned around, he was halfway out of his shirt. Seriously? Did he forget I have security cameras in here? What are you doing? I demanded, pressing him back down. Joseph looked down at me, face serious. Do you want to do it on the sofa? God. Sometimes I wondered if the drug I'd been given that night had ended up affecting his brain instead. Joseph, what are you doing? I've been busy lately, he said earnestly, but I started working out. You said you wanted to see, right? I sighed. At this point, I wasn't even sure this was the same Joseph I thought I knew. I buttoned his shirt back up, one layer at a time. Joseph, my last relationship lasted 6 years. I said quietly, you'll have to give me some time. Joseph followed me closely. If you don't want to date, that's fine too. Fine. Fine what? For so long, I'd thought Joseph and Hudson had teamed up to toy with me. That was why I'd kept punishing him, why I'd reduced him to a secret, a shadow. But now that everything was in the open, there shouldn't be anything left between us. As I adjusted his collar, something on his skin caught my eye, a faint red mark on his collarbone. I frowned. I hated marks on my own body. Joseph, though, was the opposite. I'd kissed that spot before. I rubbed at it, but it didn't fade. Joseph turned away, the veins along his neck visible as he murmured, "It's a tattoo, won't come off." He straightened his shirt himself. Now you'll never lose me again. Hudson, when he'd been most in love, had only tied a red string around his wrist. I traced small circles over the tattoo, and something soft inside me started to ache, warm and damp, spreading quietly. And why would I ever need to find you? I asked. Joseph looked down at me, his voice gentle. Even if you don't need to, you can still find me. I leaned in and pressed a light kiss to his collarbone. Then fine, I whispered. I'll make it official. You're my boyfriend now. Chapter 14. The day Joseph officially became my boyfriend. I went to the mall to pick out a ring for him. Just as I was about to pay, a stranger suddenly stepped forward and handed his card to the clerk. Buying a ring? He asked casually. Planning to get married? I followed his gaze upward and met his eyes, then gently pushed his card back across the counter. Sorry, sir, I said evenly. This ring is for my boyfriend. His face froze mid-expression, caught between surprise and something else he didn't have time to hide. Joseph slipped his arm around my waist and led me away. On the way to the register, he couldn't resist sliding the promotion ring onto his finger right there and then. Friend of yours? He asked, glancing back. I don't know him, I replied. Then I don't either. My face blindness hadn't improved, but somehow, I could still spot him in any crowd, without fail, because the person I love will always be standing, exactly where I can see him. As for everyone else, they can love whoever they want. Love isn't about sight, it's about the heart. The end. Extra story, Joseph's perspective. Chapter 1. The first time Hudson took me to a bar, I brought my secretary along. Neither of us had ever been to that kind of place before. The music was deafening, the lights dizzying, everything felt off. Then she walked in, Hudson's girlfriend, wrapped in a white down jacket, soft hair falling over her eyes, those wide, deer-like eyes blinked up from beneath her bangs. The bar was too loud, and Hudson, impatient as ever, tossed me his phone and went straight to the dance floor. She sat down next to me. I thought she was looking for Hudson, so I leaned closer. And before I knew it, she leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, her arms wrapped around my waist, her voice trembling. Baby. I'm freezing. Why didn't you answer my call? Baby? She just called me baby? My secretary and I froze. A few seconds later, Hudson came back from the dance floor, grabbed her by the waist, and pulled her away. That's when I realized Hudson's girlfriend had face blindness. She'd recognized me only by Hudson's phone case. Hudson ruffled her hair and told me not to take it personally. But how could I not? The warmth still clung to my hands. The girl who'd been in my arms a moment ago was suddenly someone else's girlfriend. It was impossible not to care. Chapter 2. Hudson often asked me out after that. My family was strict, so I used to turn him down. But lately, I'd started going, if only to tempt fate. If Hudson and I wore similar colors, the chances of her mistaking me for him went up. Maybe Hudson noticed that. One day, when Elizabeth wasn't around, he started joking about it with the others. A very different man from the one who played the doting boyfriend in front of her. I'd never been in love before, but I was sure that kind of behavior wasn't normal. Then, suddenly, Hudson brought me up. Joseph, she always mistakes you for me. Tell me, if we actually switched places, do you think she'd notice? I pressed my left hand over my right, afraid it was some kind of test. That's not a good idea. She'll find out eventually. Aren't you afraid she'll get mad? Hudson leaned back lazily, his eyes sliding past me toward the girl sitting behind me. I knew that look. Before I could even think of hiding Quinn, she'd already dragged me into the restroom. Joseph, she said, her voice sugar-sweet. I still want to work at Hudson's company. Can't you help me? Just this once? My pulse jumped. What do you mean? Just say I'm your girlfriend. She whispered. Say I've got face blindness too. Then we can just switch girlfriends. Our company's entertainment division had just started growing. Quinn wanting to jump ship to Hudson's made sense. But would Elizabeth really not notice? While I was still hesitating, Hudson had already slipped his arm around Quinn's waist. Practiced and smooth. So maybe he didn't really love Elizabeth after all. Then, why couldn't I take his place? Somewhere between guilt and madness, I crossed the line. No one had ever taught me how to handle feelings like this. So when Elizabeth mistook me for Hudson, when she peeled away my layers one by one, every rule I'd ever known collapsed. If she could only love Hudson, then I was willing to be Hudson forever. To be the other man, or better yet, to finally become the real one.